So, happy Sunday. Yes, today we are answering more questions about Awareness School, and we just kind of want to talk about awareness is the key. And maybe, I guess we could start with just the difference between like the idea of like, I know I do something. I know I do this. I know I blow up at my partner. I know I have a short fuse. I know that I have a tendency to do this or that. Like, what's the difference between knowing that you do something versus kind of the awareness in the way that we describe it and like really what Awareness School is all about?
Yeah. So the difference between like intellectual understanding and experiential awareness is the difference between knowing I have a problem and wishing I could solve it and not having that problem anymore. That's kind of the difference.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed this, that it's possible to know that I have a problem or that there's an issue in my life that I don't like or there's something that I do that doesn't serve me. There's a difference between knowing that, in fact, that happens and being able to do something to create a kind of pervasive and kind of persistent positive change in that area of life. And, I find that a lot of people spend a lot of time knowing that there are things that they wish were other than they are, but that knowledge doesn't in and of itself translate into the kind of changes that they would like to see, even when those changes are imminently possible, right? Even when they are attainable, they are achievable. And what I have found, I think what we have found is that awareness is that kind of missing piece. Awareness is like the thing. It's kind of like, I don't know if you have like a bag of concrete that you buy from Home Depot. It's dust, like it comes in a bag and it's this dust. Like if you just dump this dust out on a dirty patch of ground, you can't drive your car on it. Like it's not a driveway, it's not a sidewalk, it's just a bunch of dust. And it was interesting, actually, this is I didn't know this was going to be good when I started it, but I'm pleased to discover, in fact, this is a good comparison. If you dump that concrete dust on the ground, what happens? It just kind of sits there for a while. It's not very useful. Eventually, the wind kind of blows it away. It dissipates. Nothing changes. But if you put the concrete mix down and then you add water to it, and the water facilitates the activation of something that's sort of in that concrete mix, that then you can smooth it out and control it, and then it kind of hardens and turns into a persistent positive change. Now I have a place where I can park my car. I have found that awareness functions like the water, right? So the concrete dust is the intellectual understanding. I know I'm effed up, or I know that there are certain things in my life I have a tendency to people please, even though I know people pleasing doesn't serve me, doesn't even necessarily really serve them, and yet I find myself continually inclined to do it. And I don't even recognize that that's what I'm doing when I do it. I recognize it after the fact, once the doing's already been done. Awareness is, you take that intellectual understanding that I just described and you pour the water into it and you mix it and you shape it and you let it set. Awareness is the thing that translates the intellectual understanding into the actual juicy changes that you want to have in your life. It's the thing that allows you to do what you know you're probably capable of doing, but you can't figure. I find a lot of times people have a hard time getting themselves to do what they know they're capable of doing. I know I can do this. I know I have what it takes to do this. I know I'm capable of not doing this thing. I just can't figure out how to get myself to do what I know I can do. And that's a pretty miserable life situation to be in if you spend a lot of time there, because you end up feeling kind of dumb, or you end up feeling frustrated or deficient in some way. Because I know I can do this, but for the life of me, I can't figure out how to get myself to do this thing I know I can do. What's wrong with me? And all too often that question, what's wrong with me? Like at the end of that statement, that phrase, there's not a question mark. There's an exclamation point. What's wrong with me is not an inquiry or a request for information. Very often it is a statement. There is something wrong with me. I must be defective, whatever. And when you start to introduce this awareness into the intellectual understanding that you have, the knowledge that you have that there's a problem, the knowledge that you have that things could be different, could be better than they are, you start to have these, like an aha moment, an epiphany. For a lot of people, these things happen 2 or 3 times over the course of their life. It's possible actually to engineer the ahas. And that's what this awareness work really is. And this is personal growth stuff really takes off and really gets fun and really becomes positively productive when it doesn't consist of me pretending like I have everything together, and it's not about beating myself up for doing things incorrectly. I just go throughout my day without any real perceptible effort on my part, and I go, oh, that's interesting. I'm doing something that doesn't really make sense. Oh, that's strange. I'm feeling bad for no good reason at all. Oh, that's interesting. I have an impulse to think, feel, do, say something that if I stop and think about it, I know it's not going to create the result that I want. I know I don't want to do that kind of thing. Isn't that interesting? And that's the change. People think that the change that they want, especially if it's change that they really deeply desire, or there's something about themselves that they're really ashamed of or really unhappy with, or there's a feeling that I really want to get rid of. They imagine, I think, that it's going to be some kind of intense gauntlet or massive exertion of willpower that's going to change that thing. It just sets us up. If there's a big prize that you really want, probably there's going to be a lot of hard, intense work involved in getting it. What I have found, though, is that like real personal change actually sounds and feels like, isn't that interesting? That's the internal dialogue that happens inside a mind that is actually really changing in a way that is deep and authentic and significant and sincere. And so really the awareness work that we do is all about facilitating those aha moments, those moments of effortless change. Like, if you injure yourself and there's a scab and it's time for the scab to kind of fall away, you don't have to like squeeze anything to get that scab to fall off. You just kind of like, you're just kind of doing your daily stuff and it just falls away. And then you look down and you go, oh, it's not there anymore. And it doesn't need to be there anymore. And that's kind of what dysfunction can be like when you approach personal change work in this way. There's no massive effort. Nothing needs to tighten. Nothing needs to be squeezed. You don't have to burst any blood vessels. You just add in this noticing without adding in anything else, because that's what a lot of people like to do. They like to notice themselves doing something that doesn't serve them and go, oh, that's interesting. Boy, what a piece of crap I am for doing that. Or, oh, Jesus, I got to change this now or I'm never going to get... We want to learn how to add awareness without adding anything else to the mix. And when that happens, stuff just kind of starts to fall away.
Yes, and that ability to I think another way you've described awareness is like this ability to read your own mind. And I remember before I even started to scratch the surface of understanding all of this stuff, I was very interested in what's going on in your mind? What's going on, with my partner? What's going on with you? And, and that being so preoccupied with that created a lot of issues. And, this is this ability to read your own mind, I want to be so much more interested in my reactions to what's going on with you than I am trying to figure out what's going on with you. I want to know why am I doing what I'm doing in my head? That ability to think before you speak. That would be something that again and again, I would just be tormented by that phrase, because it's why didn't I slow down and actually think before I spoke? I was kind of on some type of automatic reaction pattern that I didn't even realize until I'm already knee deep in the consequences of having said or done the thing that I did. And then I'm like, think before you speak. Why can't you do that? It's because I would get taken away with the emotional reaction and I was not free. And so a post I just made a little bit ago was just if you are a slave to your emotional reactions, you're not free. If you're a slave to whatever's on the news, if you're a slave to whatever your partner is doing or not doing, and you don't have any choice but to feel the way that you're feeling, and to feel any other way feels like suppression, feels like going unconscious, feels like ignoring it, and this is actually a big thing that a lot of people talk about, the feeling of our emotions. And it's not that we don't, you can feel any of the emotions. It's about being able to choose consciously though, because if you have the capacity to be feeling better, but you feel, depressed and unworthy and like crap and like nothing you do is good, wouldn't you want to rescue yourself from that situation if you were able to? And that's what this kind of gives you the practical ability to do, to see why you're doing what you're doing, why you're feeling how you're feeling, why you're behaving the way you're behaving, why that makes perfect sense if we view it in the full context of you. But then also, here are some keys, here are some tools, here are some things that you can try to transform this experience, to be able to kind of wind back the dial and say, okay, what was it that led me here? When did I take that turn down, depression alley? Because there was a point at which I wasn't feeling this way and things were going well. And then, that's often, I hear this a lot with clients, is everything was going so well. Everything was going so well. And that's often an unconscious cue. And that's, again, we have to make this unconscious stuff conscious so that you understand these self-sabotage patterns and how, there's some type of deep-seated pre-conscious underground belief that life can only be so good for me. And so that's why you'll find, and it's like bizarre, and it can absolutely drive you crazy, everything was going so well, and then it's like a new blow every single time it happens. But when you get this kind of curiosity, this pattern recognition, this zooming out, this ability to see, this comes around after these things go right, boom, this goes wrong. After these things go right, and it's like, oh, there's something going on back behind what I currently cannot see, that if I saw it, it would be very clear, and I would understand this is a part of an internal mechanism that I have for keeping myself at the same experiential level. And that to me was kind of huge to realize, is that I have a set point. There is an unconscious allowance of how good my life is allowed to be. How much success, how much health, how much satisfaction in my relationships I'm allowed to have. And when I reach it, then all sorts of, unseen mechanisms start to unfurl to sabotage that goodness that I had been previously enjoying. And so by seeing it and looking at it and understanding when you're at that place again, you can start to make these conscious choices. And that's why awareness is the key. Because if you can't see it, you can't go to work on it. If you can't see it, if it's just like this unconscious force that's just pushing from the background of your life, where you feel cursed, you feel just kind of profoundly, I experience myself as just profoundly effed up. I'm just effed up. I've got trauma. I've got issues. Again, I think I said this last time, take it or leave it. And that was my experience. Sure, did I want to feel better? Sure, did I want to have, more harmonious interactions with my partner? But I also was willing, part of me was willing to settle. And it really was kind of in our relationship. And for whoever asked, if you want to take this as a couple, go for it. Take it as a couple, show up on the videos as a couple, because this work is so profound for creating a shared reality, which is kind of one of our really fun and interesting things that we do as a couple. We want to be living in the same world and having a shared reality, because when I don't understand myself and I don't understand you, it's very difficult to make harmony consistently occur. But when I get me, I know why I'm in the mood I'm in. I know why I feel the way that I feel. My willingness to change those things, your willingness to change the stuff that's going on with you. It just allows us to, and there was a testimonial from someone who took awareness school last time, who found herself just able to kind of work through, she normally would give the cold shoulder after a disagreement. And, she had this kind of process, but when she saw, I don't have to do that. When she realized kind of the stuff at work in the background that was causing her to behave the way she was behaving to her partner, she saw, I don't have to do this. And again, it wasn't like this tough, I'm going to be nice even though I really don't want to be. It was that scab falling away. It's this old pattern, this crusty old behavior that I before didn't feel like I felt justified and, I can't let it go. You need to know how mad I am, and I need to cool off for 7 hours, and then then we can move past it. But when you start seeing, I don't have to do this. This is adding suffering. This is pointless. It's effortless. And that's really what we want to get to, is we want to go to the deep stuff so that all of the old patterns can grow off and fall away. So it's not such a struggle, because that's how I approached it before. I'm never going to do this thing again. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm awful. I need to be different. I'll never do it again. And that never lasts, is that it goes until 7 hours and 35 minutes. Okay, now I can forgive you. Now I can let go. Now I have permission. But when you see like that little narrative in the background that's telling you it's not time yet, it's not time yet, and you're like, what? Who is that? Who's speaking to me right now, telling me that I don't have permission to feel better yet because I've got to extract my pound of flesh. You have to see a certain amount of dissatisfaction in me afterwards. It's got to linger for a certain amount of time, because that'll really teach you. And it's like when you see yourself having that unconscious conversation, and that's what it is awareness is allowing you to listen in on all of the unconscious background, backdoor conversations that are going on inside of your head that you had no idea. And if you see it vividly, you realize how disturbing, how unlovely, and how dysfunctional, profoundly dysfunctional these patterns are. And it's like, no wonder No, and that's the attitude, this thing of like not seeing something about yourself and saying, oh my gosh, this is so ugly, this is so horrible. You're not identifying with it. That's what the awareness allows you to do. Is like before, if you would point out something that I was doing, it was just such a blow and it was so hard to see it because my identity was so fused with the behavior that it was just such an indictment. It's like, gosh, it seems like you're being so mean to say this thing to me because I am having, it feels like who I am. But the awareness allows that separation, allows me to see this is a pattern of behavior that I learned, learned from all of my caregivers, the things I saw growing up. And now I have done it so often and I'm so identified with it. It just seems like who I am. But when the awareness takes precedent and you become more the awareness than you become the old identity and the old behaviors and the old stuff that you do that is creating the predictably, negative outcomes that you find yourself experiencing, it's like, oh, that is not me. It was never me, but it is always a choice. And sometimes I make that choice unconsciously. And sometimes I go for the ride and I take you along with me and we go to, suffering, bicker, partners who can't get alongville, and like I bring you along with me and you're like, hey, I don't want to go there anymore. I don't like this pattern. I don't like this thing. Do we have to keep doing this? And sometimes I'm so unconscious and I'm so committed to it and I go along with it. But when I'm able to see, I'm doing that thing, I'm having those inclinations, my mind is, kind of repeating certain narratives to me. If I can see myself doing that, then I have that conscious choice. And it's like, oh, of course I don't want to create a fight. Of course I don't want to stall our progress or delay or, create this mediocrity that I'm just so, programmed for. And that's the thing is so many people were just kind of programmed for mediocrity, not for excellence. We've been inculcated with these ideas of, life is what it is. It is what it is. It's, oh, you can't have everything. Like things can't be that good or it can't be that good all the time or people at other places don't have half as much as what you have. So you should be grateful. And so like we really tamp down our ability to create and enjoy more continual, satisfactory, enjoyable lives, just because we've never really looked at the stuff that's holding us back from the biggest, best life that we could have.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of things you said, well, actually a number of things. One of them was this whole idea, like not identifying with it, not beating yourself up with it. I think it's kind of weird examples, but they make sense to me, that real personal change work is kind of like potty training in the sense that like you're a toddler. I don't know if you remember this, but like you're learning how to, use the toilet and not your pants. You don't swear off the old way. You see, you are made aware of a new way, a better way, the way that the big people do it, right? And you say, oh, this is kind of fun. This is kind of cool. Here's a new way for me to do this thing. This is kind of neat. And you try it out, and and everyone says, oh, good for you, and oh, it's great. And it's like that. You don't say to yourself, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to make this mistake. I'm never going to think this thought, act this way, feel this feeling. I'm never going to feel it ever again. It's not about abstinence, and it's not necessarily about cold turkey. It's about discovering that you have a capacity to do something different. And if you sit here and you do the same old thing all the time, and then you start looking for your ability, how can I know I have the ability to do it different. I just haven't figured out how to realize that ability in reality. Let me see if I can realize it once. And you do the new thing. So you don't think the negative thought, you do think the positive thought. You don't start the fight, you do respond resourcefully to the fact that you accidentally started the fight even though you didn't mean to. You did something new. You have a capacity to do something new sometimes. And then immediately the old mind goes, oh yeah, but you won't be able to do it all the time. And you go, so what? If I can figure out how to do it some of the time, I can figure out how to do it all of the time. It's a process like that. Like the child, right, who makes it to the bathroom some of the time, and some of the time they forget and do it the old way. It's not a big deal. If you get down on yourself, if you give up the project and all this stuff, we would all be pooping our pants for our whole life. If we approached potty training the way that we approach personal change work, we would say, oh, I failed that one time, must mean I can't do it. Might as well just give up and do it the old way all the time, right? It's not like that. Let me figure out if I can do something better sometimes. And then let me figure out if I can translate that into consistent change. Then let me see if I can lock it in so that I'm like 99.99999, ideally like 100%, right? Kind of locked in on doing things in the new way. The story that you told about the lady who didn't give her husband the cold shoulder, I hear that story and I say to myself, that's not a story about a person learning how to be a nicer person. It's not a story about a wife learning how to be a nicer, better wife or whatever. Those are perfectly fine things and those are nice byproducts. This was an individual. That's not the point, though. I don't say to myself, let me make a course so women will be nicer to their husbands. That doesn't interest me. I like to help individuals experience more conscious choice in their lives so that they can do more of what serves them and less of what doesn't. She discovered that she didn't have to do something, that she always did kind of by default. She didn't say to herself, I have to stop doing this because I owe him better. I have to stop doing this because it means I'm a bad person. I do it. She was in the midst of doing the same old thing. And then she said, oh, I actually don't have to do this. And oh, my life is better when I don't do this thing that I actually don't have to do. And then as a consequence of that, she's perhaps more pleasant to be around. The quality of her relationship goes up. That's all wonderful. But the way to achieve those results is to lay the foundation, which is let me figure out what I'm capable of doing that would serve me to do that I'm not currently doing. Let me figure out what I don't have to do that I'm currently doing that doesn't serve me, right? Let me figure out that stuff. Let me facilitate an inner rearrangement that allows me to create and experience more of what I want and less of what I don't. Another thing that you said about people very often are hung up on what they can't do. Well, I can't change the way I feel. Well, I have this condition and that means that I'm depressed or anxious and there's nothing I can do about that. And when a person is operating under those kind of beliefs and limitation, I say, okay, that's fine. We don't need to question your certainty about what you can't do. I just want you to begin to think about the fact that there probably are some things that you can do that you may not yet be doing. And it's not your fault. It's not that you should be doing those things. It's just that any person in the world, right? There are probably things that anybody could be doing that it would serve them to do that they're not doing because they haven't discovered those things. It hasn't occurred to them to do those things. They're so overwhelmed with the negative consequences of not doing those things or the negative consequences of other things that are happening in their life. Perhaps they don't have any control over, that they're just not in a position where they're really able to see things that they could be doing that would improve what it's like to be them. And all you have to do is be prepared to consider the possibility that there might be. Do you see how I mean? Consider the possibility that there might be things that you could do that you're not currently doing that might improve the quality of your experience, help you create a little bit more of what you want in your life, help take the edge off of some of the stuff that perhaps you can't do anything about or that you can't directly change right now or whatever. It's about that. And so you want to be, you can even have unresourceful limiting beliefs if you're prepared to respond resourcefully to the fact that you have them. I believe that I can't ever be whatever. Okay, fine. You can have that belief and still be pretty happy if you resolve to behave in ways that are maximally resourceful within the context of that belief. Too often, though, we languish. And this is one of those things, too, that you said, like when you feel really guilty about, oh, it's happening again. Oh, I thought I was doing it right. And then things were going so well, and then we had a fight. Things were going so well, and there was a financial disappointment and all of this. That lamentation, that kind of self-pity, to me indicates that's unconscious and automatic lamentation, self-pity, which indicates to me I'm missing the opportunity to be deliberately, actively, consciously curious and say, isn't this interesting? And that indicates I have an attitude towards myself. I have an attitude towards the way that I am. I have an attitude towards the way that I could be, but I'm not. I have an attitude towards the process of changing from who I am to who I could be. Sorry about the dogs. I have an attitude towards this whole thing that probably sets me up for disappointment and also sets me up to suffer over that disappointment more than I need to and to fail to respond to that disappointment when it occurs in ways that will get me back on track heading in the directions that I actually want to go. And so really, what this work, awareness, by the way, is the ability to recognize when you're doing this kind of thing that doesn't serve you. It's not, very often people notice what they notice. I can't help but notice that you didn't do what I wanted you to do today. But what I don't notice is the fact that I'm noticing that, right? And that's that curiosity element comes in when I develop the ability to not only notice what you're doing, but also notice the fact that I'm noticing what you're doing and the thing that I don't like without noticing that, God, I tend to really focus in on, be hypersensitive to, detect, respond less than resourcefully to stuff I don't like. I didn't notice the nice things that you did today. I didn't notice the things that you're doing well. I did, all this different stuff. If I don't have the ability to notice what I'm noticing, I don't have the ability to notice what I'm not noticing. And if I don't notice what I'm not noticing, it's very hard to notice those things, even if it would really serve me to do that. Awareness is the ability to do those things. You talk too about like how it can be painful sometimes sometimes if somebody else points something out to you that you're doing, or even if you catch yourself doing something that doesn't serve you, it's sort of like, I don't want to be doing something wrong. I don't want to be doing something that doesn't serve me, because I don't want to feel the feelings that I make myself feel when I realize that I've made a mistake, or when someone else disapproves of me, or whatever. The nice thing about awareness is that it makes this process painless, makes it even pleasurable. I think about it like, if you have a pattern that doesn't serve you, of focusing your mind on what you don't want, of devaluing yourself, of feeling unworthy, of feeling resentment, whatever, it doesn't feel good to do this thing that you do a lot. If you have a splinter in your finger, right? You experience that splinter, if it's like a burrow deep in your skin, you experience it in a particular way. It hurts, it's unpleasant, right? But if you just see a splinter, do you even call it a splinter? If it's I never call a piece of wood that's not embedded in my skin a splinter. It's only a splinter once it's causing me pain. It's just a piece of wood, if it's out there. Awareness, basically, when you see the pattern, right? The pattern isn't burrowed within your identity, your concept of yourself. You are the awareness of the pattern. You are not the pattern. So as your awareness of the things that you maybe tend to do that don't serve you, as that awareness grows, the difference between you and the stuff that sometimes manifests itself through you becomes clearer and clearer. There is no pain. If I look at a piece of wood on a table, I don't say a splinter, I don't say to myself, oh, it hurts so much. I don't, because it's a way over here. It's not inside me. And that's creating that distance, right? You become more and more identified with your ability to be aware of the fact that you're doing things that don't serve you. And the more identified you become, I want to check. Yeah. These dogs are in here and they're chewing on these cow ears, and sounds like someone's barfing, but it happens. She's gonna make sure that there's no choking. It's okay. Okay. Well, anyway, these things happen. We give them those things so they settle down during the videos, but the side effect is that sometimes they barf. Oh, good. Any Chevy Chase fans or Christmas Vacation, Melissa just said he got it up, which is which you'll recognize that line. But as the more aware I become, the more aware I become of my awareness, right? And the more aware I become of my awareness, the less I tend to identify with that which I am aware of, which means that I can see myself thinking, feeling, acting in some way that doesn't serve me. I can see some result in my outer world. If I have a kind of a bad relationship or a rocky patch or whatever, I can see that that's happening. But because my identity is based in my awareness of that, I don't identify with it. When I don't identify with it, I don't emotionally resist it. I don't react to it in ways that are unproductive. When I can see things in my world without identifying with them, I then find it easier to not react to them, to not emotionally resist them. When I don't react and emotionally resist the stuff I don't like, I tend not to engage with those things in ways that perpetuate and exacerbate those situations. And so you see that this awareness stuff really is the process of disidentifying from those aspects of my inner and outer reality that I do not like, so that I can stop the pattern of reacting to those things in ways that make them worse, make them continue, which I then see the consequences of them continuing and getting worse. I identify with them even more. That perpetuates, exacerbates the whole situation even more than that. It's really, awareness is the capacity, just one way of talking about it. It's the capacity to make sense out of doing what will serve you. And the capacity, and in that moment, right, to make sense out of it is, if you ever raise your voice to your partner or to your kids or whatever, and it doesn't really serve you, but why did I do that? Well, in that moment, I was able to make sense out of doing it just long enough to do it. There was a feeling that let me know it was time. There was a series of circumstances that said to me, this is an exception to that rule that you made for yourself or whatever, and I made sense out of doing it long enough to do it. And awareness really is the ability. And on the other hand, it's like sometimes there's things that I know would feel good to have done. I know I want to do. I know I want to be nice. I know I want to be productive. I know I want to get in shape. I want to do all these different things. But I just can't get myself to feel motivated. And to feel motivated to do something, in my mind, is to make sense out of doing it at an experiential level. Awareness is the ability, right, to make sense out of doing what serves you, so that you look at it and your criteria for acting in this world is not what does my situation set me up to do. It's what's going to serve me moving forward. It's not what do you deserve. It's it's not what do they deserve for me to do to them. It's what do I deserve to have done, right? And it's just this freedom, really, to start living life on the basis of what you want and how to get it, rather than living life on the basis of all sorts of corrupt criteria that end up creating conflict and disappointing results and resentment and all this different stuff.
Totally. I did see there was a question a while back, and it's an interesting one and one we get often, and I will find it and we will answer it. Here it is. What methods do you use for clearing emotions and subconscious beliefs beyond becoming aware of them?
I would say that if you are, if once I start saying what besides awareness do I need to do, I have, in my view, I have begun to stray from the one true path. That everything other than if I'm looking for something other than awareness to solve my problem, that's an indication that I have not yet allowed awareness to do its work. I know a lot of people are into a lot of different things. Everything I have tried other than, when people say, well, what else? What else is there? It's like I haven't finished the process. If I'm still asking myself, what other than awareness can I try? And a lot of people, they don't believe this, they don't want to hear this, they like to do other stuff instead, and I think that's fine. In my personal experience, though, every time I have done that, it's because in my workouts, right, I follow a very simple exercise template. It's boring, and it's extremely effective. It gives me exactly the results that I want. Self-observation and awareness is that same way. There is this urge to add. What can I add to this? What can I do? And invariably, when we work with people, the people that are most eager to add things to their awareness work, the reason they want to add is because the awareness work is somehow uncomfortable to them. They are, they're eager to distract themselves from some aspect of that particular work. And so, generally speaking, the desire to add something to awareness work is a huge, bright flashing neon sign that what I really need to do is double down on awareness work and continue and push. And the moment I don't want to add anything else to my awareness practice, that's when I'm allowed to add something else to it. But until that time, the mind, in my experience, will do everything that it can to distract you from the process that is actually going to facilitate a substantive change in the arrangement of the mind. The mind has an inertia to it. It wants to stay basically the way that it is. I mean, it's just, resisting change. And so when I start doing some work and my mind goes, oh boy, that's really great. What do you think you could add to this? What else can we do? I say absolutely nothing at all. Stick to the program. Like Olympic athletes, for example, when they follow the coach's guidance, and the coach's guidance is often not bright and flashy. It's often very simple. Listen, you need to follow this program template. Progressive overload, add the volume, get enough sleep, eat properly. This is what eating properly looks like. Do you want variety or do you want a gold medal kind of thing? Do you want entertainment? Do you want momentary intellectual edification? Or do you want a deep and profound change in the quality and character of what it's like to be you? And in my experience, if that's really what I'm after, I need to do work that is sometimes boring. It doesn't titillate me. It doesn't tickle my ears. It doesn't give me, people oftentimes, they like to accumulate all sorts of different approaches, and there's people love things that have like letters associated with it, the PRRTO1 technique and all this different stuff. And it's exciting. What's not exciting is me sitting by myself, observing myself, watching myself, seeing my thoughts and feelings and behaviors. And now the big thing is, it's not a superficial, if I hold a biology book up and I go and flip through the pages, it's true, I've seen everything on the pages, right? But did I really see it? It's one thing to see myself thinking a thought. That's true. But these thoughts have multiple dimensions from them. The assumptions and the ideas and the beliefs from which those thoughts flow, they have multiple dimensions to them too. And I don't need to just see what's transpiring in my mind. I need to see it and recognize it for what it is. And what that means is I see a thought about, I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder what they're thinking. I wonder what whatever. I see it, right? But I don't necessarily see it in the full context in which it's occurring. How is that thought a manifestation of my concept of myself? How is that thought a manifestation of both my values, my relationship to my values, and the things that I believe to be true about the areas of life that I value that are important to me? You see it in all of that kind of three-dimensionality. You begin to really recognize it for what it is. For example, if I see a guy walking down the street and you say to me, did you see that guy walking down the street? And I go, yeah, I saw him, right? A lot of people think that's awareness. When we say awareness, what I'm saying is you see the guy walking down the street, you recognize that he is a world-class art thief, right? He is a world-renowned safecracker, stealer of wonderful and important objects. Now, it's different Particularly if you're like a museum curator and you see that guy walking down the street, go, oh yeah, I saw that guy. Oh, I saw that guy. I saw that thought. Yeah, I saw it. I saw that thought. I recognize that it's the thief of joy. It is the chief thing that robs me of who and what I could be. It is the chief cause of all of my feelings. It's the thing that makes me look outside and find things to blame or find things to feel bad about. That's recognizing it for what it is. Awareness has a breadth and a depth component to it. And a lot of people become very, extremely aware of one thing, but they lack the breadth. Other people, they have a great deal of awareness of the various thoughts that they think, but their depth of their understanding of what those thoughts are, what they're a manifestation of, all this is lacking, and therefore they don't get necessarily the kind of pervasive change. It's kind of like if you're trying to like screw something or tighten a bolt or something like that. And I'm often assembling exercise equipment and stuff like this, and I often find myself in a position not having quite the right tool, and so I'm working twice as hard. And then like when you find the right kind of, I don't know what those things are called, those L bars or whatever that you tighten, if you can get leverage on it, the amount of force, the amount of effort required to exert the force necessary to get the thing to tighten diminishes significantly. And with awareness work, when the breadth of my awareness and the depth of it is sufficient, the amount of effort I have to put forward to change something in my life is, like this, instead of, trying to really force it like that. Basically, the way you clear this stuff is that you watch it as it happens fully. I observe that belief. That belief cannot activate, it cannot manifest, it cannot create, it cannot influence me without me being acutely aware of the fact that it's happening. I see the belief, I see myself believing it, I see the feelings and the thoughts that flow forward from that belief, I see what happens to what it's like to be me when I'm believing it, I see how my relationship to my external world changes when I'm under the influence of that belief. I've noticed when I get drunk, I have a hard time standing up and walking, right? I notice when I'm believing this, I have a really hard time interacting with my partner in a way that's constructive. I have a really hard time receiving feedback in a way that's useful when I'm operating under the belief that I'm not good enough, that I'm not okay, whatever. You go through it. You walk through the valley of the shadow of unresourcefulness in full aware, but you're not afraid because your awareness is with you. You're fully aware. This is what it's like to be me is like when I live life believing these things, feeling these feelings. Here I go. I'm doing it. I'm fully aware. There's 100% awareness, and there's not even 1% of anything else. No emotional resistance, no criticism, no condemnation, no identification with the thing that I'm seeing. It takes a lot of a kind of courage to walk through the process, to go through the process of being, of valuing, of believing, of thinking, of feeling, of doing something that doesn't serve you, and know that that's what you're doing, and not blame yourself, not resist it, not fight the consequences of it, just to stay in that place of curious watching. That's the clearing process. The clearing process isn't, okay, here I go, I'm clearing. The clearing process is, let me do the same old thing in a radically different way. Let me walk through this in full awareness of the fact that this is not me. This doesn't have to be this way. It's okay that I'm the way that I am, and I don't have to be that way anymore. Can I get all of those things spinning at one time and keep those things spinning long enough for me to really outgrow this thing?
Oh, so good. Do we work through our conflicts on this course? So not specifically, but in a roundabout way, yes. Because the thing about conflicts, especially if you've got like a chronic thing, obviously like one-off conflicts, being able to understand and look at what allowed that conflict to occur in that moment is super interesting. But like when things have become chronic, it's often because there are patterns of reaction, things that are kind of have become a part of your identity. You have a conflict shock early in life when you were a child, and it shapes your thinking and your reaction so profoundly that it becomes part of your identity. And that's one of like the more difficult types of conflicts to resolve, because it's like everywhere you go, there you are. And you're so fused to the identity that you developed as a result of the thing that happened or didn't happen, whatever the shock was, and you're fused to it. And so the course, while it's not about, resolving your conflicts, it will allow you to develop tools for this ability to see how exactly your self-concept, your identity shifted because of the thing that happened, and all of the thoughts that are basically pouring out from that shock, from that trauma. And you'll be able to see, oh, I'm thinking that thought again, like something like self-devaluation. You see it and you're like, oh, and you pull the thread and you go back, and it's like, oh, this goes back to this kind of fundamental, deep down unconscious belief that has been under the soil for so long because it was a conflict that happened so early in my life. I've never seen the world through a lens of course I'm worthy. Of course I deserve everything that I want. Because there's been such an unconscious assumption that I can't get what I want, that it's not possible for me, that I'm broken, that something's wrong with me because of this thing that happened a long time ago. And so we get into kind of the mechanics of how trauma, how conflicts, how shocks shape your identity and then birth all of these different thoughts and feelings and behaviors and results in your life and how you stay in the loop. And so while it's not about the content of your issues, it's about the pattern of how issues become a lifelong thing, of how they become something that continually shows up and continually reactivates your biology in particular ways that's leading to uncomfortable symptoms. And so, and that's why I was so interested, because the Ever Better Life course was a thing before we discovered, before I came across GNM, which was really cool because I was like, oh, this all fits together, because when you are traumatized, when you are shocked by something, it shapes you, and the way in which it shapes you is the stuff that keeps coming up for you and the unresolved conflicts. And so, it's not about the content of your specific issues, but the tools you will learn will help you to understand and then better unravel and deconstruct whatever it is that you're dealing with.
Yeah. It's like, if I experience a conflict over a certain life event, right? There's another person who perhaps would have gone through a similar life event and not been conflicted about that. Or perhaps they would have been conflicted about it and resolved it more speedily than I did, or more easily than I did. And so a lot of the work that you do in this course will involve changing things that may have predisposed you to experiencing certain conflicts in the first place. It's kind of like, if I don't know, let's say I tripped and fell down and hurt myself. Let's say like having a conflict for this, let's just pretend that it's like losing your balance, falling down. And what this course is, in a sense, is learning how to balance on various things. Okay, now we're going to walk on stones. Now we're going to walk on a tightrope. Now we're going to walk on a ledge. Now we're going to walk on something that's kind of like this. And that balancing skill that you develop as a result of learning how to walk on those things, we may not teach you how to walk on the specific thing that tripped you up last time. But to an extent, the ability to balance, to maintain your equilibrium, translates to a number of like different life circumstances. And so, one of my favorite ways to solve problems is indirectly. So rather than going after the problem itself, I'm mad at so-and-so because of such and such, I'm upset about this event because of whatever. If I try to go head on at that problem, oftentimes there is this army of resistance that is aroused within me that resists the idea of my changing how I think and feel about that situation. Like if I'm mad at somebody and I start trying to talk myself out of being mad at them, right? Very often that triggers my mind to justify and to double down and to amplify on all of the reasons that I'm angry at that person. And so my attempt to be less angry makes me even angrier. If, though, I can turn away from that situation, let me just talk about specific skills. Let me just talk about a pattern. Let me just talk about a principle. When I focus my mind on what I don't want, I tend to feel worse than when I focus my mind on what I do. Okay, that has kind of obvious logical implications for the situation where I'm angry at this person. I don't want them to have done what they did. I don't want them to do what they're doing right now. I don't want them to do similar things in the future. That's a lot of what I don't want. That is true, but I kind of feel sensitive about that topic. So let me just focus on the whole bigger picture issue, focusing my mind on what I want versus on what I don't. Okay, and then you start to see, man, I actually, not just in that situation, I focus my mind on what I don't want a lot, right? And it's kind of obvious that it doesn't serve me. Not going to touch that anger. Leave that anger alone. Let's let that fire burn down before we try to do something about it, right? And so I start practicing this principle in other areas of my life. There's this magical moment where I get so good at applying this principle in other areas of my life that the principle, the pattern, the habit that I have developed automatically applies itself to the thing about which I was conflicted without my having to do it head on. Some people sometimes in their relationship, one person will say, okay, I'm not happy with the way things are. I want to have a better relationship. I want to get in shape. I want you to get in shape. Let's make money. Let's have fun. Let's help people. Let's do cool stuff together. And the partner runs to and they haven't actually done anything yet. They're just really high and excited about the prospect. They run to their partner and they go, listen here, we're tight ship now. We're going to do new things. Everything's going to be great. Sometimes the partner's just kind of like, oh, you're coming on kind of strong here. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm not in the mood for this, whatever. And sometimes the best thing to do if you want your partner to change is for you to go ahead and start changing in the ways that you want to, and to allow those changes that you are making to kind of invite them to join the party, to keep up with you, to do whatever. And when you're doing personal change work, I sometimes think about, like, there's me and myself, right? And I'm in a relationship with myself, with my unconscious mind. And so sometimes when I want to start creating changes, I say, all right, mind, listen here. No more of this negative crap. No more of these limiting beliefs. No more of this, any of this stuff. You need to start changing right away because I'm changing and I want to have a happier life. And my unconscious mind's like, get out of here. It's sitting on the couch trying to watch football. It doesn't want any part of it. And so what I'll do is I will start, rather than telling my mind to be more positive, I will start, or be more resourceful. I'll start acting more resourcefully within the context of my mind being as negative and unresourceful as it is. Lead by example. I will just go, and rather than, this is a very powerful kind of thing. Rather than telling my partner about some principle that I'd like for them to embody, I start practicing that principle myself in my own life for my own benefit, and I allow that principle to kind of communicate its influence to them indirectly and therefore much more powerfully. And so when it comes to like your conflicts and stuff like that, sometimes going head on for the problem is the thing to do. Sometimes the thing to do is to develop a skill set independent of that specific situation, especially if it's triggering, if it's sensitive, if it's kind of touchy, whatever, if it overwhelms you, if it upsets you, if you're offended by the prospect of not feeling upset about it or whatever, if that's just inconceivable to you, go build the skills in another area of life, learn to do new things, and then eventually you'll get so good at it that the moment of application to that particular problem, it will just catch you by surprise. You'll do it without even having to think about it.
Yes. Oh, so good. Can my partner take this with me? Yes, we decided couples can take it together, and that it'll be great for both of you. And I guess we can go over some of the details. So tonight, the early bird ends. We officially start class on Thursday, March 24th. It'll be 10-week program. We meet every Thursday, 5 o'clock Pacific, and the meetings go for about 90 minutes, and we just unpack, so you'll have, as soon as you enroll, especially if you enroll today, you'll have access to the Beyond Belief course, which is an awesome deep dive into beliefs. There's a whole module on beliefs in the course as well, but Steve gives a lot of really great analogies and examples. I really love that course.
The objective is just to wear you down. I don't know if you've noticed in this, but people, you got to be, there's all these stories in the Bible. It's kind of interesting about importunity, which is this brazen impudence. There are a couple of funny stories in the Bible, and I was surprised to read this. Like, if you read this and you're like, oh, I'm reading the Bible, or oh, I don't like the Bible. But if you just kind of read it, like, what's this actually saying to me? There are these stories where Jesus is telling his disciples, he's like, listen, if you want somebody to do something, you basically just annoy the crap out of them until they do it.
Just keep knocking at the
and
door.
He gives numerous examples of how that, and it's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. So with myself, I just have to wear myself down. And I think about how I would get what I wanted from my parents when I was little. It was like I would just kind of little, I kind of want this, kind of want this. Same thing with changing beliefs. It's not necessarily some big cathartic, monumental, peyote experience out in the desert. No, it could be. It certainly could be. But sometimes what you got to do is just annoy the crap out of your unconscious mind until it goes, God, as much as I hate changing is going to be less effort than dealing with this conscious mind's intrusions and demands that I do things differently. And that's kind of what the Beyond Belief course is about. It's about, listen, we're going to whittle this thing down. We're going to be like the water dropping on the stone. The stone is this big, massive, unconscious, unresourceful belief, and I'm just going to drop a little bit of change impetus on it over and over and over and over again, and eventually I'm going to wear a little groove in it, and then sort of the life that I want can flow through that groove, and everything will be cool.
Yes. So 10 weeks of diving into that. You have access to modules 1, 2, and 3 right away, so you can just get a head start and start going through the modules, because this is designed to be something you go through again and again. It's not like a one-time thing. Every single time you develop the framework, the first module kind of gives an overview of the entire framework of the 10 weeks, and then we go deep. And then we go deeper. And so that's what that's what awareness, so the Ever Better Life course is like the program that you'll have forever access to by enrolling in Awareness School. And then Awareness School is us kind of meeting with you live. We'll do 3 bonus sessions for questions and application of some of the implementation guides. All the courses a module that's like a visual kind of PowerPoint webinar style module. You also have audio of the notes, and then implementation. And so there's a lot of material, a lot of kind of content to chew on and to work through. Any other details? The early bird ends tonight, $500 off of the enrollment and the Beyond Belief. And so that's why get in today if you know you're going to do it.
And if you've taken the Effort of Life course before, there is a special for you if you want to do Awareness School, right? Because you already have the course. If you've done Awareness School before, which is that you've gone through this process and you have the Effort of Life course, there's a sort of extra special thing for you if you're interested in going through round 2, because it's never exactly the same, and a number of people are kind of keen to do it again because there's always just more stuff to explore. So I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Awesome. And if you guys have questions, obviously, let us know. Just we will be happy to clear up any kind of issues that you have, or if you're considering enroll. Oh, if you can't be there live, that was the other thing. Do you accept PayPal? Yeah, if you can't, if for whatever reason, if you can't register through our regular website, just message me and I can set up a PayPal link for you. If you can't be there live, you can watch the replays. And so all of the replays will be posted in the course module, and so you do have access to it if you're not there with us live. That's cool.
And you can submit questions before or after the meetings. We'll cover them in the meeting themselves, and or we'll send out emails. Last time we did a Telegram group, or it's Telegram, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I kind of like running that. It was sort of a neat thing because it's a little less formal than emails, and so this is like. And I said this in the other video. I get a little obsessed with helping people get this stuff. So if you're if you're concerned about the level of personal attention, there's an option to add one-on-one work with us. Like you can do that. Like if you want to work with me in addition to a call either every week or every so often, that's something that we can kind of set up independent of the Awareness School enrollment. On the other hand, if you're just kind of wanting the ability to ask questions in the event that they come up, you don't necessarily want to do the one-on-one stuff, you tend to get a lot of extra attention through the email and support. So if you have questions, you're gonna receive more attention than you want. I think I said last time, right? Well, you're gonna get it. If there's a question that you have, and if you ask it, it won't go unanswered. It's probably gonna help a bunch of other people get it anyway. So that engagement is there. It's really good. People do well with this stuff. Like if you're listening to this and it's resonating with you and it makes sense with you, we've never had somebody go, I didn't really like it that much. Or, if you like these videos and you like where we're going with it, the course is just this, but wider and deeper and more of it. And there is sometimes people have sometimes the mind's a little tricky. People are sometimes very good at figuring out how to not benefit from something. You know what I mean? Like, it's great, they're great, the course is great, but I just can't figure out how to do whatever. We're all about wearing that down and getting it through so that it actually sticks. Because you got to know, there is a way that you can... it's kind of like if you're like sneaking a supplement or something to your dog and you kind of hide it in the, what do you hide in the cheese or whatever? Sometimes with these ideas, it's like my mind is so fortified in a negative way. I'm so good at not changing or at not believing that I'm capable of doing it. We do a pretty good job of taking the idea and hiding it in the cheese and sneaking it in there so that your mind ingests it and it just, it gets the benefits and it goes, oh, this was actually pretty good. So that's how we approach this stuff. It's practical and it's fun and it's real. It's just about like, oh man, my life is better than it was before, man, and it's getting better. And actually things are fun now instead of being a drag or instead of being kind of an onerous, difficult, dramatic, ponderous, unpleasant kind of thing. So yeah, that's basically what it's about.
Yay, we'd love for you to join us. So have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and reach out if you need anything. Bye-bye.
See ya.